And hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the EGlaze Chronicles. I am your host, EGlaze, and welcome on a special edition. It's a noon edition. I'm still trying to wake up myself, but some people are always bright and bubbly at this time of the day, and we have one today. A good friend who I've known for a few years now. I've seen her career grow in the Atlanta area. She was outside at one time, now she's inside. She's got the anchor desk, and she's with 11 Alive News, a good friend, award-winning journalist. I like to put that out there. Miss Jennifer Bellamy. How are you doing, Jennifer?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Let's start with that. Your career so far. How would you describe it since you've made the move to 11 Alive to where you are now?
It has been a whirlwind, I'd say. I've been all over the place here at 11 Alive. I came back about 5 years ago. For those who don't know, I'm from the Atlanta area. I grew up in Gwinnett, went to UGA, and can tell around here. So I moved back after working at some other stations in some other cities about 5 years ago. I mentioned I was outside. I was reporting in the morning on the morning show. I was at work at like 3 or so. So I kind of completely flip-flopped. I did some work on the weekends, did some work on the nightside show, back to days a little, and I'm kind of transitioning back into night a little bit temporarily. So I've been all over the place. I've been reporting, I've been working here, and it's been a great time because I love Atlanta and I'm happy to be here. I'm home with my friends and my family, and so this is a great city. It's a great place.
I'm going to ask two questions off of that. First, as a reporter and doing this, do you kind of be prepared to just do multiple things, or do you set your mind to say, you know what, I could be mornings, I could be evenings, I could be reporting? What is your mindset when you take a job? Is that up front with you, or do you have to, put goals out there and things like that to get these type of movements and things of that nature?
It's a little bit of both of those things. You do kind of have to be prepared, moved and shifted around throughout the schedule. There are some instances where you can kind of get somewhere and be settled for a little bit, especially if you're anchoring. Sometimes they think things into consideration. If you have a family, you maybe might help out on different ships occasionally. But for the most part, you do kind of have to be ready for whatever. We're getting ready for right now. That's going to mean long hours for everyone, no matter what you're on. If there's weather, long shifts for everyone. I've been in situations where my station would put people up in be closer to the station to help cover weather. And so this is just one of those careers where you kind of have to pay for anything. When we saw stuff happening earlier, we had people that were at the station for 12 hours. They were thinking their day was good when they first started work at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
But till maybe 2, 3 in the morning. So you just kind of have to be able to go close to the extent because and news doesn't stop based on wanting to go home.
News doesn't stop. But let me ask you on that second question on what you've earlier said. Is it harder doing this in your hometown, knowing people are watching you and family and things, or does it make it better for you doing it in your hometown?
I don't think it makes it more difficult. It's a little more fun.
Okay.
My parents are watching every show that I've been on at this station, and they still watch. They'll watch Morning Rush, they'll watch it, they'll watch me, or not, they'll be watching. But they were doing stuff like this. They were watching on was in state as well. But comments from people about something after the war said, people up and know about all the stories in their own personal newscast on. So it's fun, and it's a rare everybody all to be in their hometown. And like I said, Atlanta, it's such a great place to be. There's so much there, and that's for me able to.
Let's talk about it. You mentioned it just a few seconds ago, this 2020 news cycle. We're probably having, I don't want to say because we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year, but one of the biggest news stories is happening in a few days from now. You're talking about 12 hours, 13-hour shifts. How has your life been in 2020 with so much going on, from coronavirus to protests to now we're getting into this election cycle? if people, we've tried to describe to people what it's been like for you in this news environment in 2020.
It's been very hectic. Especially all this information with coronavirus starting to from not hearing and not really knowing much about it and to learning more about it and trying to adjust to the new stuff that we've learned about it throughout the course of these past few months. Everything has been a big adjustment. We went from people having like dozens of people in the newsroom and people sitting all around you and there being lots of talking and a lot of collaborating, and you can just look over their shoulder and say, hey, come take a look at this, or what do you think about this, what's going on with this? And there aren't that many people at the station. We have recently increased the number of people, and we're going to have a small increase to better cover the elections, but it's been wild not having people in the station, especially. And that's everybody from people that are on air, people that help get stuff on the air. We have producers and we have directors that are working from home. And so when you have a question about a show, I'm texting the producer and I'm like, hey, can you tell me about this story, or what are we doing here? And it's just a challenge. I mean, you still kind of have to figure out a way to make it work. I broadcast from home, I believe once earlier in the pandemic, probably back in the spring. And I will say probably for most of the anchors and reporters that do work from home, that's just an added layer of time that you have to factor in to get your stuff back to the station. Or if you're anchoring, there's a little bit of a delay. And so you're getting cued earlier. I remember I would be waiting for a story to end, or my co-anchor would be talking and I have to start talking before them before they finish, because there's a delay and we're trying to account for that on the air. So there's a lot of little things like that that are going on. But, life still goes on. Other people are at home working. People are doing school from home with their kids. And so you just kind of have to adapt and keep it moving as best you can. We've got a lot of new things at the station. We've got signs about reminding folks to wash their hands. We've got signs reminding folks to distance. We have mask rules in the station. And then we've got like some clear partitions in to kind of keep people safe when they're seated, and they're trying to keep people seated as far away as possible from each other. And so just a lot of things that you might expect, things that you're seeing other places as well. We're instituting and adopting those policies as well.
Do you take on a personal responsibility that, since I am somebody who's essential to provide the news, I have to now cut back on what I do? I know normally putting on the mask and going places, but you having to pretty much, your life was changing anyway, your personal life was changing, but because of what you do and you being a face of the news, do you feel like I can't do certain things, or I have to be extra careful, or I have to watch who's really around me, because my job is to report information to people to keep them safe, and I can't be sick and catching corona, when everybody kind of needs me? Do you put that pressure on you? Do you ever think about it like that when in what you're doing right now?
I do, to a certain extent, because I mean, it's a tightrope. I mean, nobody wants to get sick, and in the situation that we're in, we don't want to make others sick either. And everything's so interwoven right now that if one person is removed from the equation, it's like a domino set. It's going to have ripple effects throughout the newsroom. So I do kind of keep that in mind. I keep my mask on, and I'm kind of mindful when I go places to try to get in and get out. So yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of people have kind of relaxed things a little bit, especially since the summer. The weather got better. We were thinking things are going to get better, and now we're kind of seeing the numbers shift a little bit more. Not just here, the numbers are shifting wildly across the country now. And so I think a lot of people are probably thinking about, okay, maybe I need to start pulling back a little bit more, especially as we get closer to Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think that's going to be a big factor for a lot of people. If I want to go around my family and friends, I need to govern myself accordingly. So that is in the back of my mind.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people are now looking at the calendar like, man, it's almost Halloween, which means almost Christmas. I mean, Thanksgiving, which is almost Christmas. So, what's going on? What would you feel? What would you describe as the temperament of Atlanta, of Georgia right now, with so much going on, these hotbeds, this corona? Is it frustration? Is it eagerness? Is it fear? What is, people are just living their life. What are you feeling from the newsroom of just some of the people that y'all are interviewing and talking with about how they're feeling right now with all that's going on?
Honestly, I think it depends on where you go, and who you're talking to. Atlanta is very different from other parts of the state and the metro area that we cover. And so I think when you talk to some people, you have the ones that are like, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't think it's necessary. I might have a health reason that prevents me from being able to wear a mask consistently. You have people that are anxious to get back to the economy. I actually did a story speaking with an economics professor from Emory, and we know that there are two schools of thought with this when we look at the presidential candidates. President Trump wants to reopen the economy right now, and we've kind of seen that already. Joe Biden, on the other hand, thinks we should kind of tackle the pandemic, and that will then translate into improving the economy once you've got that settled and situated. So we've got these two schools of thought, and people subscribe to both of them. And so we see a lot of people that are back out and about doing whatever they need to do, and things maybe that they don't need to do. But it's hard to tell somebody, you can't do this. We live in America. And so it's very tricky. I think there are people that are nervous, that are, staying at home as much as possible. We've seen that even with debates on sending kids back to school or not. We've got some counties that are like, we are reopening. We have some people that I believe are back to school 5 days a week now. And then we've got Atlanta saying, you know what, the numbers aren't where we want them to be. We're going to continue with the virtual learning for the rest of the school year. And so it's really a toss up. And within APS, we have people that are very frustrated with that decision, who were ready to send their kids back to school, I believe, on Monday. So it's hard to say what different people are going to say when you meet them, and what their thought is when you talk to them, because there's such a wide range. And just because one person is comfortable with maybe going out, they might not be comfortable with being out in a large crowd. They might be saying, I can go to, I don't mind going to a restaurant, but I'm not trying to be at a rally per se. And so it's just very varied depending on who you talk to and their life experiences and their thoughts and beliefs. And it's just kind of all over the place right now.
I always want to ask you this with what we've going on. I know normally you would probably have your day. I mean, things happen daily. We know that. But in a time like we are now, how do you prepare for your day? How do you never know the story was coming. You try to see and capture everything, but do you go through a routine and just get ready and just be prepared for anything? How do you get ready for a day? Because I'm sure, because one thing about, I see you guys also on Channel 36 now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it seems like y'all are doing almost 24-hour news at a certain point in time.
It's almost been a year since we increased our news coverage on prime time, in prime time rather. So we call it 11 news in prime. So we have a half hour at 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
We already were doing that, but we added an hour at 8, an hour at 9, and then we had an hour at 10 that we were already doing as well. So we have a lot of news opportunities for, if you get home late or if you got stuff going on, you can the news on later and watch us. So we have a lot of extra coverage there. And in terms of your question, I just prepare for my day normally as I would before. I get up, I work out. I have a little bit more time to chat with my family since I go in later. Right now I'm going in around 3 p.m. So I have more time in the day to kind of get stuff done. If I need to run to the store or do some stuff around the house, I have time to do all of that. But I do find myself checking in on my work email just to kind of see what's going on, trying to make sure I'm sending stuff out on my Twitter account about what's going on. I try to share feel good stories with people on my Facebook and Twitter accounts when I can. And so trying to find those kinds of things. So I am doing all of that before I get to work. Depending on what I do, earlier in the pandemic, I was going in at 1. And so I had a little bit more time to kind of work on stories that would actually air. And so I would be kind of dealing with some of that stuff if I needed to. Like I said, I try to, as best as I can, just go through a normal day because I like that. But if something happens, then like I said earlier, you kind of got to be ready to pivot and adjust. For example, if someone calls out sick, okay, I need to be ready to step in and anchor on another show. Or if someone can't do an interview, I need to be able to step in and grab it. And sometimes they have things that they're expecting me to do or that they'd like me to do, and they've decided earlier in the day before I get to work. Sometimes I get a heads up. Sometimes I get to work and they're like, hey, can you do this? And you just kind of got to roll with it if it's something that's a day of and you kind of need to get the story and the information out there.
We're going to switch gears for a quick moment because of those pillows that are sitting behind you. And I know you're a sports fan. We know you're a sports fan. And unfortunately, like a lot of us, I was on the show with Maceo yesterday, my co-host with a Crush. And I was just talking about these last 3 years being an Atlanta, Georgia fan in general. I just could have had a Super Bowl, could have had a national championship. And then you see the Dodgers win the World Series last night, and we were just up 3-1.
Yeah.
As a sports fan, try to explain to people how these last few years have been for people that reside in this area and who are fans of those teams.
It's rough. And I'll say it's already rough because Atlanta has so many people that come from other places. So for those of us that are from here or that choose to embrace everything that's Atlanta, including our teams, it's tough, especially when you're dealing with a lot of those other fans. I'm not giving up on my teams, though. I'm hopeful. And I mean, that's all I can do. And it's a new year. It's a new every year. And hopefully they've got to change at some point. I was there at the national championship game for Georgia. Man, I mean, that one really hurt.
Yeah, I mean,
because those situations where we could have and should have won.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I know we said we weren't going to talk about kind of like the Falcons with what we're seeing lately with all the games where we could have and should have won. And the score at the end does not reflect that. So,
I mean, you putting it very graciously, but I'm tired.
I'm tired too. But I say it that way because I'm not going to stop rocking for my teams. I'm going to keep my red and black, which goes for all my teams. And I tell people this too. I'm like, if you get your red shirt and come to Atlanta, you'll be good. Because any team
True.
has red in it.
Yeah.
That's worth rooting for.
I mean, I get it, man. I mean, I agree with you, but, I'm just tired as a fan. I'm just exhausted. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at the Dodgers and Lakers winning. I'm like, LA wins 2 in a month. And I'm just.
Yep.
But
and it's some other city who's getting. I am hopeful, though, now that Falcons have made changes, that maybe we can see some changes in the people that we draft. Now I am being a little gracious with this. I am hopeful that things will improve now that we've got some new upper management. In terms of Georgia, though, I feel like we've kind of been going in the right direction, but I also feel like for NFL and college right now, it's a tricky situation because people weren't able to practice and do the preparations that they would normally do. So when we see so many people on all these teams, getting hurt and injured, and maybe they weren't able to, get the conditioning in that they normally would have. So I don't know. I feel like regardless, whoever wins, it's going to be like a little asterisk on the win. Now I'll take the win.
I'd take the asterisk. I just want to share.
But if we're not going to have it, I'm like, it's going to be a little asterisk over there.
Look, I got you. You might as well say, it didn't matter no way.
Exactly. And I mean, honestly, who's to know what will happen? I hope that both leagues will be able to kind of continue out their seasons. But who knows? I mean, we saw talking about the World Series. The Dodgers had a player who got removed from the game for COVID-19, and now a big part of the headline that he was out there with the team. Not necessarily about them winning, about COVID. So,
and I'm not trying to be funny, but just feel like COVID always is like, y'all gonna forget about me. I'm okay. I'm just gonna give you a reminder. I'm still out there.
And I mean, it's been wild, especially for, I mentioned earlier, we thought things were going to get better by summer. And you kind of just keep moving the benchmark down. And I'm trying to remain hopeful. I hear people saying how many years it's going to take to get back to normal. I'm like, no. But that's more of a wishful thinking on my part. I know we've seen some stuff recently about vaccines being hopefully approved or applied for by the end of November. And so I'm like, fingers crossed, because I want to be out there. I want to go to the games. I want to tailgate. I really missed all that stuff this fall. And so hopefully, we're on the way to better.
I always want to ask this to get back to, because we can tell it in your personality now, keeping that smile in your voice and keeping that smile for people. With so much going on, I don't know if there's any tricks to the trade, but how do you keep the smile in your voice when so much is going on and so much? I know people rely on that from you. But how do you keep it in there, and how do you keep people to let them know that you can count on you to have that smile in your voice, so that they, even though the times are rough, that's going to be something, and they need to be able to rely on that.
I think it's a lot of things. I think I have an amazing support system, and I also was kind of raised up in the church. And so, I always got people that are kind of keeping me grounded and helping me to remember that this isn't the end, or other things can happen and things can always change. God could make something out of nothing. And I have, many stories with things like that have happened for me. And so I just kind of, even when I'm frustrated, or when something happens that I would rather not have happened, or things didn't go the way I wanted them to go, I kind of keep it in the back of my mind. I still have a great family, my parents, my sister. I have wonderful friends. And even if this is going on, or even if this didn't happen the way I wanted to, I still have people that I know that are going to ride for me and support me and encourage me and motivate me. Let me kind of vent a little bit when I need to, but then kind of bring me back and say, okay, you had your little moment there, but okay, what are you going to do about this situation? Or, what are our options? Or, we love you, you're awesome. And I think having a group of people behind you that support you and are rooting for you is unlike anything else. And I think I have a good group of people that do that and cheer for me and root for me and truly care about me and my happiness and my well-being. And you know being a journalist, I hear all the time people say, oh, the news is always bad, there's always bad stuff. And I'm like, well, you must not be watching 11 Alive, because I know we consistently try to tell good stories about things that people are doing in our community and across the country, especially during the height of the pandemic. We had Send the Love and Share the Love kind of campaigns. And we made a point to tell good things that people were doing during the pandemic. One of the stories I contributed to, I had a Sunday school teacher of mine who is still living, and she had a birthday, and everybody from the church, people who went there and people who still don't go there anymore, everybody kind of came together and did this drive-by for her. And, it's little stories like that you kind of remind people of, to show that there are good things happening out there. And, it's possible we're going to get through it eventually. Trouble don't last always. That's something I always kind of picked up from my dad, who got it from his grandmother. Trouble don't last always. And so I try to keep that in mind.
You mentioned it, and then we got a few minutes left. I wanted to talk to you about what y'all are doing at 11 Alive, from what your award-winning morning show to. Let me just change. I had a chance to talk to Brenda, and Brenda was awesome as always, and talking to Sheba not too long ago. And what are y'all, the things that y'all are doing there now? Like you're saying, you're doing the 11 Alive evening news, and what do you feel like as 11 Alive and as a team, you guys are doing now for the city of Atlanta? And it's and to add on that, what is it like to work with a Jeff Hullinger, who's been around for years now, just to work with him, and the guy, the sports guy who's now become the news guy? How's it been working with him, and just overall the environment at 11 Alive right now?
Jeff is a wealth of knowledge. It's always something new and interesting with Jeff, because he's seen so much here in the city of Atlanta. He remembers so much. And one of the really great things about Jeff is that he loves to find these little stories. And he'll have these little stories, and you should check out his Facebook page, because he'll post things. He'll have pictures and he'll talk to these people. And it's not even just always old sports stories. It's old celebrities who used to live in Atlanta, or have different connections to the city. And it's stories that you would never have any idea about. And so Jeff always has something as a frame of reference, a point that he remembers, something that he's covered before. And so that's great. Having him, especially when Congressman Lewis passed away, you know, all the experiences that Jeff has had with him, and we had Brenda come back, and that was, I think, amazing to have both of them kind of helping us with that coverage, because they both knew him, they both had these experiences with him, and then they have these memories of the city, and that kind of helps frame coverage in a way that you wouldn't have known, or you wouldn't have been able to kind of see and get in other places, especially for people who have recently moved into Atlanta. If you haven't been here for a couple of decades, you don't know all of these stories. If you're younger, you don't know all of this information. And so that is really something great about 11 Alive, that we were able to draw on the experiences of those people. In terms of what we're doing and offering, right now our slogan, our mantra is where Atlanta speaks. And I think we're really working hard to kind of give that to everyone, especially right now when we're talking about politics and coronavirus, things that are very divisive. One thing that I've really liked when we've done this during the pandemic is we have a phone number, and we have people text us and they'll let us know their concerns or questions. We'll try to get them answered. We've answered medical questions. We've answered financial questions. We've been trying hard to help people who might be trying to get unemployment. So we have people behind the scenes, even when it doesn't turn into a story, that we're trying to kind of get information to and from. But one thing that I liked was we had that phone number, and people would leave us voicemails, and we would turn those voice messages of people who live here in Atlanta speaking about different things and turn those into a story. Just a wide view and perspective of what people have to say. You know, you live in Atlanta, whether it's been a long time or a short time, you kind of have a limited view of maybe just what's in your surroundings. You don't necessarily interact with people that may be in the outskirts of the suburban area. You may not know what their experience is like. So we send folks to the Trump rallies. We've sent folks to the Joe Biden rallies. And, you know, we're really trying to bring both of those. I know sometimes people may not always agree that that's what we're doing, but we're trying our best to kind of get all of those viewpoints in and to share them, because you have to know what the other side thinks, even if that's not what you believe. It's always good to know what the other side is, and it's always good to be informed. And that's why I always tell people about local news. You know, people might watch network news or they might watch national news, but this is going to get you the information about what's going on in your backyard, in your community. A big thing that we've been dealing with most of the year now is street racing. And we have tons of people that are, you know, upset about it. And now we're seeing, we've heard from the police about it. We've heard from people in those communities. And now we're hearing and seeing work that city council might be doing, actions that they might be taking. And that's stuff that you're not going to get from national news. You're not going to know that that's happening down the street from you. And if it kind of moves into your area, you're going to be like, well, wait, what's this? But people have been talking about it and you maybe didn't know. And so there are little things like that that I think are really why people should be looking to local news. You know, people tune in for weather, and that's awesome, because I'm like, what's going on outside? But there are other things that are happening in your community. And if you know something and you tell us, we're going to do our best to look into it and see if it's something that we can kind of parlay into something that we share with others as well.
Yeah, especially like you said with the weather, Hurricane Zeta, whatever it's called. We ran out the
I
Greek
know,
alphabet for
I'm
so
like,
many of
how
them.
much more of this can we take too? I'm funny that we've gone this far with storms, in addition to coronavirus, in addition to everything. It's been a year, but
Yeah.
we're still here.
It's been a year. I like that. I'm saying it's been a
It's
year.
been a year, and I've also said it's the fastest, slowest year, because
Yeah.
everything. I mean, it's amazing. We're almost in November, and for us to have been living like this for the year, it's time seems to have flown by slowly, but it's flown by.
Yeah. Didn't think we are gonna make it, but we getting there. I want to ask this. We'll finish with this. You kind of mentioned about the what the station is, but when somebody tunes into uh, Jennifer Bellamy and watches a story that or a newscast that you're anchoring or a story that you're doing or whatever, what are you hoping they come away with when they see you and tune in to you?
Well, depending on the story, I hope that they maybe get something, a smile out of it. I enjoy telling stories that involve people. Now, we can't do those kinds of stories all the time because that's not reality. But I do hope that people see I'm fair and professional. That's something that I always strive to be, as professional as possible, as fair as possible, and hopefully somebody that you wouldn't mind your children looking up to.
There it is. That's awesome. Since you are a social media person,
Yeah.
what would you tell people to go follow you at? What can they follow you at?
J Bellamy TV. That's where you can find Instagram, on Twitter, and Facebook. Jennifer Bellamy, 11 Alive.
There it is. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked me. I appreciate it. This was fun. I'm trying to figure out some way to connect, but again, my kind of been all over the place for the last year or so. So I'm glad we could figure something out.
Yeah, and thanks for trying to cheer me up with this whole sports thing. I don't know if it worked or not, but I'm gonna take it.
We gotta try. We'll get there eventually. We got the pieces. We just kind of got to take it to the next level.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah.
We'll get there.
It's been a rough few years. I'm just saying,
It has been, but hey, again, look, what we say, but don't last always.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Unless you're a Falcon fan, it's been going for a while. I mean. Jennifer Bellamy, member, I thank you so much. Appreciate the time. Thank you guys for tuning in, and remember to continue optimizing your vision. And we'll talk to you.